Welcome to Strong by Nature, your portable campfire sessions for living strong, balanced, and connected the grizzly way. Today's campfire session is a bit more personal. I want to talk about my mental health journey, the ups, the downs, and what I learnt along the way by living with bipolar and finding balance in a restless world. Alright, so we've got a bit of background noise today, which is quite nice. This is really like a welcome to my story, welcome to my personal space kind of episode. I'm set up outside, and we've got the outdoor laundry just around the corner from me, and the washing machine and dryer are both going, and my mother-in-law's making herself breakfast in the kitchen. So yeah, bit of real ambience today. So anyway, let's just jump straight into it. This is quite a personal one today. My history with mental health, my journey I went along, what I've learnt, what worked and what didn't for me. So everything really started in high school. In high school, I could be a bit loose, bit of a class clown kind of vibe. I had like this extra sort of energy I could tap into when I needed it. Didn't really think much of it, but I also had these moments where I just felt just a bit flat. It wasn't like a full-blown depression or nothing like that, but I just felt just drained and a bit empty. And to be honest, I just thought it was kind of like just the usual puberty ride. I never really thought too much of it while I was at high school. There was some ups and there was some downs, but everything you hear from the movies is that's pretty much high school, right? Highs and lows. But once I got out of high school, those patterns all started to escalate a little bit, and I started to get to a point where it was obviously a lot more frequent, a lot more intense, but I also started to experience some episodes of psychosis. So how psychosis presented itself for me. So psychosis basically is when any time you're experiencing something that's not there, whether you're hearing it, whether you're seeing it, whether you're feeling it. I don't know if it goes over into like tastes and all of that side of it, but definitely hearing and seeing. So how it was presenting itself to me was in my own thoughts. So it was my internal dialogue, but it was from a different perspective. It was from a different place. And growing up in a religious family, that like spooked me a lot at first. You know, like was the devil talking to me? Like, what the fuck was going on here? Is it God? Like, who's all of a sudden got this extra opinion in my life? But at first, it was easy enough to kind of just, you know, sort of ride along with. But it started getting to a point where I was getting multiple at the same time, and so any kind of decision making became really confusing, because all of a sudden there was, you know, 20, 30, 100, I don't know, heaps of different opinions going on, screaming inside my head. Outside was quiet. Inside there was just so much noise, so much chaos, and I was having moments where I was convinced that I could communicate with my mum, of all people, through my thoughts. So we were having full-blown discussions while I was at work every day, and I'd get home and I'd be a little bit confused about how she didn't really carry on with that conversation. She didn't really get what had been going on, and then I started experiencing it as well. So this was when I first left school, and I was working as a exterior plasterer. And so walking around the outside of houses all day, walking around the walls, and then I could feel these presents following me through the wall, and they were communicating through my thoughts as well. And then other objects started doing it. So I vividly remember picking up my tools to start working one day, and they were screaming at me to put them back down, which was, you know, 17-year-old kid, like it's terrifying. So eventually I was like, look, this isn't normal. This has got a bit too far now. So I went and sat down, told my mum all about it. Like, I've always been able to open up to my mum about things like that. So I let her know everything that was going on, and she booked me in to see the family GP. I remember it was in the evening. It was the evening that I told her, and I remember it was in the evening when we went to the GP. I don't know if it was the same day or not, or if it was the next day, but both these occasions I vividly remember being 6 or 7 p.m. at night. So we're in the GP's office, and he's been my GP ever since we moved to Hamilton as a kid. So, you know, like, he's more or less watched us grow up. But he basically said, look, I'm going to put you on some antidepressants. I'm going to refer you through to a mental health body agency, whatever you want to call it, clinic. And he said, look, it's not my place to diagnose, but you realise this sounds like schizophrenia. So obviously that was scary to hear at first, scary for my mum to hear, scary just going back to the family, hearing that I might have this issue. So anyway, I go in and I start seeing psychiatrists, and I feel like it was a couple of times during the week. And at first my mum would come along with me because that obviously made it easier. She was aware of everything that was going on, and that played a massive support because they also, as much as they were trying to figure out what was going on, they needed me to keep a journal so that they could like see the clear patterns forming rather than just going off what me and my mum was saying. So my mum being aware of that obviously made it a whole lot easier because she was helping me keep up with this journaling. So that was obviously like a massive win early on, was that, you know, this journaling really helped them see the patterns and start to see everything unfold. But during this process as well, so the antidepressants were obviously, they'd chilled the depressive episodes right down. But what they'd also done is they'd escalated the highs. So the voices had all gone. So by this point, it was just highs I was experiencing, and they were fairly regular. And I remember moments where I'd come home from work and I was so excited because it was Friday, it was the weekend, you know, I'd just been paid, I was over the moon. And my mum's trying to talk to me about my day, and I'm bouncing around on all the couches, and I'm having this conversation with her in song. So I'm singing away about my experiences during the day. It was hilarious, but it was wild at the same time. So then they start to see, okay, so there's obviously some kind of mood thing going on. Let's mix up the tablets you're getting. And there was a few different combinations over the first few months. But eventually what ended up working was being on it was called Epilim, which is a epilepsy medication, but it also helps with mood stabilizing. So again, I couldn't tell you how long into the time frame it was. Definitely all in the first year, maybe within the first 6 months, they diagnosed me with what is called cyclothymia. And so that is like the first step on the, I want to say spectrum, it's probably not the right word, maybe ladder, the bipolar ladder. So there's obviously various degrees of bipolar. So that's the very first step. But I learnt early on that saying that nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what cyclothymia is, and it sounds fucking terrifying. And so just going with saying I had a mild form of bipolar was just the easiest way it's gone. And then it's just become to just referring to it as bipolar because it's easy. But yeah, the technical name is cyclothymia, and it's not the same as like a full-blown bipolar because the highs and the lows never got to the extremes that it does with a full-blown bipolar. So a full-blown bipolar is usually, I think the lows last anywhere up to 2 weeks and the highs can last for a week. Whereas my lows would never really extend to a full week. It was usually 3, 4, maybe 5 days, and the highs were only ever 1 to 2 days. Sometimes just an evening, sometimes a few hours. So they were definitely like intense, but they didn't go for long enough for it to qualify as the full-blown bipolar. And the psychosis I was experiencing was a byproduct of the depressive episodes. So when I was getting really low, it was tapping into that. And that's why it kind of disappeared when I was using the antidepressants, because it more or less just wiped that out. So as well, during this whole process, once I started to really sort of stabilize and get what was going on and could sort of think back clearly and all of that, I started wanting to speak with a psychologist as well, because the psychiatrist was great, but the psychiatrist was more or less trying to just keep everything level with medication. But I knew that mine wasn't super extreme, and I just always knew that it was something that I would be able to deal with without medication at some point. Like I always just felt like the medication was just going to be a crutch for me, and that's not that I think it is for everybody, but definitely for me at that time. Like I just knew that I didn't need the medication long term. I needed it when I needed it, but it wasn't going to be the fix. Like I could understand and I could deal with this. So I started working with the psychologist, who again we did a lot of work with the journaling. And so I was just going along by myself by this point. I was still seeing a psychiatrist probably once a week, and I was seeing the psychologist possibly as many as 2 times a week at this point. And this was possibly a couple of years into the whole experience, I think now. Now that I actually think back, and because I was always doing these during the day and it was taking time off from work. And I remember I was taking time off from when I was working in a skate shop. So yeah, a few years later when I was really speaking with the psychologist a lot. And yeah, with the journaling and with everything else, we started to identify all of my early triggers, the things that were setting off the different episodes. And there was layers to that as well. There was my energy levels in general, like the amounts of exercise I was doing, what I was eating, when I was typically like binging a whole lot of shitty food. My finances were coming into it, my routine. There was all these different things that were affecting it in different ways. And so I say finances because that was a big one. Like I would get paid, and I'd get all excited because I had money in my account, and you'd start building up off that, and then the more excited I got, the less I kind of thought about the consequences of my actions. I just really sort of I was pretty offensive at that point. Like I'm offensive now, but just imagine somebody who had absolutely zero filter and had zero thoughts for the consequences of things they were saying and doing. So I was pretty fucking offensive at this point when I was on my highs, when filter just wasn't an option. So I'd get super elevated and excited, and I'd just go out and I'd just want to buy things, and I'd shout everybody, and I'd buy friends stuff, and then within a few days my money's dried up, and then I'm like, shit, I've got bills to pay, I've got to pay rent, I've got to pay all these little things, because I'm a few years into the workforce by then. And so then I would spiral down the other way, because then I had no money. I'd made shitty choices with my money, and typically when you make these shitty choices with your money a lot, for me especially, like I was eating crappy food, so that would start to build up, and then I'd get overweight, and I'd feel shitty, and I'd feel unhealthy, and so I'd spiral down, and then I'd start to move more and start to exercise, and the exercise made me feel better, and so then it went back up the other way. So it was learning all of these patterns, learning all these different things that would send me this way or that way. And yeah, like I say, like it was a lot of things adding to it. So it took a while to really get that, really zero in on that. And there was a lot of like personal work I was sort of doing on myself internally during that time as well. So I stayed dealing with the psychologist for, I can't even remember how long. Would have been at least a year, but eventually I moved cities, and I moved to a new city, and I was still sort of semi on and off the medication then. I'd kind of got to a point where I'd get good, and I'd settle down. I'd hop off the tablets for a few months, but then something big would happen in my life. Like my parents temporarily separated a few times over the years, and so that was a trigger. I'd end up back on tablets for a while after that, and then I'd get balanced, and then another big thing would happen, so I'd end up back on tablets again. But I moved city, and when I was in this other city, I didn't actually realize at the time. It was like when I kind of looked back after moving, but I got into this, not deep, but like just this kind of like just below the surface kind of subtle depression that like never really lifted for the couple of years that I was there. Like I'd moved away from all my friends, I'd left my bands, I'd had all these massive changes, moved cities, got back into carpentry again, so carried on my apprenticeship, and then didn't really have anything else. We had no friends there. I moved with my girlfriend at the time. We were living with her family. Her family was real into Ironman, so I started doing a bit of running, and then I just zeroed in on running. I knew exercise was good for my depression, so I was like, this is going to keep me balanced. But I went this whole other route for a couple of years where I just zeroed right in on the exercise, the running mostly. Like I was obsessing over my numbers. I was like to the point where like my shoes, that my outfit, everything played an important role, and the types of food I was getting in was purely so that I could. It was more carbs, purely so that I could run more. I was eating. I'd go for runs and take potato chips with me because there's carbs, and then there's the salts, and the salts is good for your cramps, and so I was getting all this like reasonable information, like pretty decent like nutrition information, really. But as we've spoken about, there was massive holes there, and yeah, that was when like this kind of obsessive side of my personality really kind of took hold, like running, and then the swimming and the cycling, all the triathlon long distance elements really became my whole personality. But it was my whole outlet. I would get home from work and I was like, I can't deal with the shit at home, so I'm going for a run. I'm going to do 15 Ks, and I'm just going to put the music on that makes me feel good, and I'm just going to disappear into that. And so once I got out of that, we ended up breaking up, and then I moved back to Hamilton for a little bit, and then moved down to New Plymouth because I was like, I just want to go back to where I'm from. I feel like I'm being called there. Everybody's left Hamilton now. All the friendships that kind of just dried up when I moved have more or less those, they've either dried up, or people have moved away. So there wasn't really much there for me. So I went back down to New Plymouth, and that was when I could kind of turn around and sort of look back on how unhealthy I was mentally at that point. Like I wasn't drinking at all during that phase because her family didn't like alcohol. So when I got to New Plymouth, I kind of went on like a complete U-turn. I just started drinking and partying all the time, and I got right back into skateboarding. So stopping the running but carrying up fitness and movement through skateboarding and just various other things that I was doing in my lifestyle, I was like, wow, like exercise doesn't have to be just exercise. Like I think that was the first time I really understood like the importance of just moving, and just how vital that was to my mental health. But yeah, obviously the drinking and all of that didn't really help, because alcohol is a depressive substance. So I ended up obviously going through a breakup and then going straight into fucking drinking and all of that. Like I ended up back on my medication for a while, but it was only 3, 4, maybe 5 months max after all of this. No, you must have been about 5 months. It was about Easter. We broke up over Christmas. So anyway, I'm down in New Plymouth, and that's when I've met Belen. I've met her through my auntie, she's from Brazil. She introduced me and Belen through like a Latino community in there. And so speaking with Belen early on about all of this, because I was like, fuck, I need to be sort of open and honest, and like if we're going to get into this serious relationship, then she needs to know exactly what the go is. And so she, obviously you don't really talk about these things in South America, so she was a little bit kind of caught off guard, but was still cool with it, because obviously like we had this connection by that point. So she was cool with it and just wanted to learn and understand. And a few months into our relationship, she came into trouble with her visa in New Zealand and had to leave. That's why we ended up moving to Australia. We'd been together for a few months, and I was like, nah, there's something about this that I just don't want to see her just run off overseas and just carry on with my life. Like it wasn't a matter of breaking up for me. It was, how do we make this work? So we found out through a mutual friend about a visa that she could get for Australia. So if you're in a relationship with a New Zealand citizen, you can get a 5-year working visa in Australia. Well, you could at the time. I'm assuming you still can. But anyway, we applied for that. But in the meantime, she had to leave New Zealand. She had to go back home for a bit. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go to Ecuador as well. And so that was big for me. Like the time that we'd been together, I didn't need the medication anymore. Like she gave me some stability back in my life. I'd spoken to her about all of this, and so I told her, look, these are going to be little things that are going to be potential triggers for me. If I say that I just want space for a day, it's nothing against you. I just know that I just need to sort of chill at home and sort of just reground myself again, and all of that. So she was cool with everything. But before I went to Ecuador, I was like, look, I'm moving country for the first time. I'm going to be away from my family. I'm going to be away from so much. It's still not even a year since I went through that other breakup. So like I was like, I'm gonna need my tablets. I'm going to take them just in case something happens. And I don't think I had any of them. I may have, but I don't recall actually taking them out of the suitcase. I left Ecuador early, went to Australia while she was still waiting for her visa just to start getting everything set up. And there was times when I had struggles early on, those first few months in Australia, but it was homesickness. Like I just wanted to go back home. But once Belle moved over, like everything changed, and I've never needed medication since. There's been other little episodes that have happened in my life, like losing family members, but I just think all of that work I've done over the years, understanding all of the early signs and knowing the repercussions of holding off too long at each step, I think all of that work it's really taught me how to see that when these big things come, that like, hey, that's just part of life. You're going to feel sad, but that doesn't mean that being sad means you have to dwell on other sad thoughts that are going to make you sadder and blah blah blah. So yeah, like Belen has had a massive role in me being off the meds. And I mean, she as well, when I was in Australia by myself, found this out a year or so later, she reached out to my mum because she was worried. She didn't, she knew I was homesick and just talking about just going home, and she didn't really know what to do. So she reached out to my mum, and her and my mum have had real good chats about it over the years. So they've been able to sort of bounce information off each other with my whole situation, which has helped a lot. But like I say, the whole time I've been with her, the whole time I've been outside of my country, more or less, I haven't ever felt like I've gone back to that point where I've needed the medication again. So yeah, for me now, like routines, exercise, and just lifestyle choices, they're not random for me. Like these are things that I've figured out that I need to keep that balance, to keep myself level. I need some sort of structure. There was times early on when we first started the entrepreneurial thing where it was my first time not having a 9 to 5 job. I was my own boss, and so that took a while to sort of wrap my head around the routine. Again, like it never got to a point of sending me this way or that way, but it was internally, there was a lot of internal dialogue for me figuring out a proper work routine, keeping myself on schedule with things, and discipline has become a big part of this. It's become a big part of my fucking personality in some ways. I talk about discipline a lot, but it's because without having some sort of discipline, I don't think I would have been able to keep myself so steady for so long. And exercise as well. Like exercise is an important thing, but it's also something that has potential for me to be obsessive with. So obsession can be a pretty unhealthy thing and a pretty unstabilizing thing for me. So trying to keep myself in check with things where it doesn't become my whole world. Certain things, yeah, like it's okay to have a obsessive personality about certain things, but for me with exercise, I can fucking zero right down and get to a pretty miserable place without fucking realizing I've got myself there. So yeah, exercise is important, but it's also, I've learned that it needs to be fluid. It needs to more just be something enjoyable. It needs to have obviously those benefits, like I need to be improving my strength. I need to be making sure I'm maintaining good fitness. I need to be looking after my joints and all of that, but I have to actually be having fun doing it, and that's jiu-jitsu has become that for me. But also it's one of those things, like I'm very careful not to, there's a lot of jokes in the jiu-jitsu community, and it goes over to anything, I suppose. It's not just exclusive to jiu-jitsu, but like people go down fucking rabbit holes on Instagram and YouTube, and like they're learning techniques, and they're bringing them into class, showing the professor, hey, I want to learn this technique that I've seen on Instagram, and it's always clickbaity techniques, like some super impressive thing, like do this, it works 100% on every black belt, blah blah blah. It's some flashy thing to get people clicking. the basics is always what works. But for me, knowing that there's potential for me to just zero right in on jiu-jitsu and make it my whole world, I'm like, no, look, like I don't need to be consuming content all the time. I like watching UFC, I like watching mixed martial arts and fights, but I don't watch a whole lot of just strictly jiu-jitsu competitions. I'll watch a little bit, I'll watch the big matches, but I try not to get too intense with the content, because I'm like, I don't want this to be something that gets ruined, like running got ruined for me, because running's not the same for me anymore. I can't just zero in and just disappear like I used to, because as soon as I start doing that, I start thinking numbers. And it happened early on last year. So I was recovering from my broken leg, and I'd been speaking with some doctors, and they said, look, some running is going to be good because that impact is going to help the bone knit. And so I started running, but then I started running a lot, and then all of a sudden I was running 5 days a week, and I was getting up to 13 kilometers on the weekend, 8 to 10 kilometers on runs during the week. And this is like fucking 3 or 4 months after being given the all clear to start walking again. And then I had a little tweak in a class at jiu-jitsu. Somebody grabbed an ankle lock, and before he'd really grabbed it, we just heard this big cracking sound, and my leg flared right up again. So I went in at x-rays and ultrasounds, and there was nothing showing. It was just, I think, my body just giving me a warning, like, hey, dickhead, stop running so much, because we're still knitting this shit back together. You've got all this hardware that we haven't fucking accepted as part of our body yet. So yeah, like running, like I have to do it differently now, because I know once I start going for too long and start thinking about it too much, my running times start to become something I just think about all fucking day. So I don't want jiu-jitsu to become something like that for me as well. And yeah, other like lifestyle choices, like I eat reasonably healthy, but I don't eat super strict, because again, like there's been times when I've just zeroed in way too hard on a diet, and it becomes painful. It's all you start thinking about. So that's why that whole 80-20 rule works perfectly for me. 80% of the time I'm eating pretty healthy, eating mostly whole foods, eating the shit I know my body needs, and 20% of the time I'm eating because I fucking enjoy it, because I want to eat some yummy stuff, and because it's okay to do that. So one of the big things I think that has always helped for me is by talking about this, by opening up about this. Like, I'm one that has never been too shy from early on in a new fucking friendship or relationship with somebody, bringing this up, because as well I'm aware that there can be times when I do still get a little bit elevated and whatnot, and at least people understand that, hey, like this guy gets excited sometimes, like that's all right. And as well, there's still times now where I'll say to Belen, like, we've got some social thing organised, and I'm like, look, you know what, like I'm just going to chill at home tonight, because I don't need the noise right now. I just need to be by myself for a couple of hours. And so that's cool. So like, I find that just by being open about that with people, like, it just warms people that I'm a fucking unusual guy sometimes. But it also works beautifully, because it builds rapport, and people start opening up about their things, and then these really awesome discussions start happening, because everybody's gone through some shit. Everybody's at least seen somebody go through stuff. Like, psychosis is very common amongst young men, like between those ages of 18 to 25. Like, it's very common that young men experience these things. Suicide rates in men at that age are very high. Like, there's some direct links there. So like, and this isn't just a whole like, men, we need to speak talk. This is like, everybody, we need to speak. Like, we need to be able to talk freely about these things, because they're not that unusual, and they're not bad things. Like, they're chemical imbalances, and if there was more discussion about this, more people might find that the approach I went through is actually reasonably effective. I'm not saying it's effective for everybody. Like, not everybody can jump back off the medication, because like I say, chemical imbalances, like, you need to be able to stabilize all of that. And for some people, medication is the only way to do that. But just being able to talk about this is massive. So this is really an episode that I'm hoping some people leave some comments, leave them anonymously, reach out to me privately. I'll leave a link to my Instagram in this episode so that you can reach me there. But we need to be speaking about this more. Like it's not a bad thing. It's normal. We see it in movies, we see it in everything. People go through this kind of shit all the time. So like why do we not talk about it more? Why is it a weird taboo thing? Having a name for this condition was a relief as well, even if it's fucking confusing and nobody knows what it is, but being able to just fucking tag onto bipolar. But having a name is massive, like understanding exactly what it is, knowing that I'm not some weirdo, that this is something that happens to people. People get these conditions. So yeah, like trial and error was a big thing for me, and I think this whole episode has taught me as well that trial and error is just a good thing in our day-to-day life. Maybe that is why I like cooking like I do. Maybe that is why I like training like I do. Like we try stuff and we see what does work and what doesn't work, and then we improve on the stuff that works and we get rid of the shit that doesn't. Like that was very much the process for me, getting on top of this and to getting to the point where I can live a normal life again without having to rely on anything, and honestly without having to really think too much about it at all. But trial and error, I think, was the key for me, and the support system as well. Like my family was always very supportive. My mum especially. My little brother was always somebody that I could talk to, and that my little brother and my best friend, actually, they were both people that I would talk to about everything and never expect advice from them, and they never gave advice or an opinion. They just listened, and they just hung out, and they were always just sweet about it, and that's exactly what I needed as well. Like, if you've got a friend who's going through something, don't feel like you have to give them the information. Like sometimes a lot of what people need is just somebody to just hang out and be there. Just make them fucking feel like they're still a normal person. But yes, the support system was massive for me. And I think as well, like the personal responsibility as well of it all, learning to manage it myself, learning to figure it out what I do and don't need, I think has helped me. Obviously it's helped me massively, but that's something that I'm still dabbling with the idea and sort of thinking about, like how can I help more people do this? Like how can I help people find this same sort of method? But obviously, you've got to be so careful with the advice you give out these days and what you are and aren't allowed to talk about. But definitely, like I know that this works. It's worked for me, and how can I help people do the same in their own way? That's a big part of what this whole channel is all about. But yeah, balance at the end of the day is the main thing that I feel like I can throw out there without getting sued at some point. But balance is the answer to fucking everything, right? Like you've got to have your work-life balance in check to have a fucking happy family life. But it's balance in just everything. Like I've found the right balance for me with exercise. I've found the right balance for me with diet. I've found the right balance for me with my fucking goals and ambitions and my work life, and having now the garden in the backyard. Like we're living somewhere where we don't have, I mean actually now in Manta we do have more access to nature, but just being in Ecuador in general, like a big part of starting the garden as well was to be able to have something natural and having some nature near us everywhere, because it's not, yeah, we've got more access here in Manta, but it's not the same as life in New Zealand. Like life in New Zealand is just, nature is just such a massive part of it, down to the point where everyone has grass in their backyard. Like it's not that common. Well, I suppose there's apartment buildings and shit and that, but it's not common to have like a backyard area like I'm sitting in right now, and the ground is concrete and tiles, and that's the normal here. Like nobody has grass around their house. They've got the space for it, but they don't have it. And so just that is massive, and trying to find some sort of balance, right? Okay, like I know we need to live here. We needed to move over here. We've decided to stay here for a bit. need to stay, I suppose. Well, we do this year. We need to stay for a little bit, not as long as we're planning on though. But my point is it's finding that balance. Okay, like we have to be here because there's some benefits from us being here, but we also need to find what we had elsewhere, and balance is fluid as well. Balance is always changing, like your lifestyle, things are moving and changing in life, so you need to be constantly aware and tweaking little things. But yeah, that balance with exercise, with nature, with how you're fueling your body, with how you're spending your free time, with what you do with your family, just all of that. Wow, there's a hummingbird in the garden, that's incredible. Sorry, distracted as today. But yeah, balance. All the tools that I use to regulate now, my training, my gardening, my woodworking, playing the guitar, and I see stuff that my wife uses as well, like she enjoys being out in the garden as well. She likes doing art, she likes painting, she likes just drawing, she likes doing just little crafty things with her hands. She likes working with clay. Her exercise is different to me. She needs yoga. She knows that she needs a little bit of like resistance stuff, and she prefers to do it with circuits rather than sit down and just punch out machines. But she's finding her balance with her exercise as well, with the couple of things she knows she needs, and then the majority of the things that she just enjoys doing and benefits her body completely anyway. But yeah, balance. I'm not saying you need a garden. I'm not saying you need to work with your hands, but I'm saying you need those things that give you some release, that give you the reward of creation. You need to be creating, right? Like that's more or less what I mean when I say working with my hands. Like I'm creating, and you need an element of that. You need to be moving your body. You don't need to be going to the gym and lifting weights. You can do this any which way you want. It's beneficial if you're going to be pushing and pulling and using your legs and giving your muscles some resistance training, because that's what's going to carry you on into your older years. Like you really should be doing some resistance training, but that can look like fucking anything, right? The most important thing is you move your body. You need to be moving regularly. You need to be giving your body what it really needs. But again, what your body really needs and what my body really needs are different. So that's like an experiment that you need to go on for yourself as well. And then yeah, creative time, working with your hands. I think the conversations as well with this whole space with mental health need to be more focused on, and I'm going to sound like a douchebag for saying it, but like positive vibes only, right? Like this needs to be like just more beneficial for the whole like mental health culture, I suppose we'll call it. Like it needs to be a positive space. Like yeah, like there's a lot of negative things that come from this, but we need to really, like a lot of us need to really zero in on the experience, but the positive side of it, like what are we learning from this? Like, how can we help each other from this? All right, so my couple of takeaways, I was just reading through my bullet points and I've actually discussed everything I wanted to, but it's just, I'm sorry that it's been a little bit higgledy and all over the show today, but I'm pretty sure all the information that I needed to get out is in there, and I'm sorry if I've repeated myself or gone around in circles a bit, but it's a close one to my heart, this topic, and I tend to get sidetracked and carried away because there's so much I want to say at the same time, and it's just tricky to rein that beast in. But yeah, my practical takeaways for this week is, so I've got 3 things here. So have a go at journaling some triggers. So when you notice that your mood has dropped or your mood has gone up, quickly just write something down, even if it's just jotting something down on your phone quickly. But just write down a couple of triggers. See if you start to notice some patterns. See if you start to see things that are kind of sending you this way or that way in your normal life, right? And then also, if you can, find one daily anchor, whether that's going for a walk or doing a workout or a particular meal routine or just something that brings stability. Easy ones are getting out of bed and just making your bed straight away, getting out of bed, having a cup of water first thing that you do. But these these daily anchors that just you're going to be able to easily do every day. Hopefully as soon as you wake up is probably the easiest way. Then if you've eaten the frog, you've got it done. But find that daily anchor, something that you can do every day that just gives you a moment to just bring you back into everything. And then the last one is reach out. Talk to someone you trust. Don't keep shit bottled up. Like, that was a big thing for me for a long time, was bottling shit up and not talking about it. So once I learnt that, there was this kind of pressure valve that I could release by just opening up about shit, as trivial as they seemed, especially with people I trust, like, there's still people, like, obviously Belen's the massive one, that there's times when I just need to sort of get this shit out and I just say it, and I know it's stupid even as I'm saying it, but I needed somebody else to hear it. So reach out, speak to somebody that you trust. Reach out to me if you don't feel like you have that. Like I said, I'll keep my Instagram in the bottom. Let's leave some comments on this post, like, if there was a particular episode to drum up a conversation in the comments, like, this is the one. Like, let's explore this area a little bit together. But yeah, 100%, if you really need somebody, reach out to me. Like, I'm here to have a yarn. Again, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just sharing what worked for me. All right, everybody's path is different. But the important thing is that you don't go through these things alone. If you've found something that helps you stay balanced, exercise, gardening, breathwork, therapy, I'd love to hear about it. These stories remind us all that we're not alone around the fire. Mental health isn't about being perfect or always happy. It's about learning how you ride the waves, finding the tools that work for you, and building a life that keeps you grounded. Stay strong, stay balanced, stay connected. That's the Grizzly Way.